Welcome back to this week's edition of the Rock and Roll Ghost Podcast. This week we are, to say beyond thrilled is putting it mildly, to have Walter Hill, legendary filmmaker, on the show. Walter is promoting his newest movie, Dead for a Dollar, which is very good. It's on video, on demand. Might still be in some theaters. I'm not quite sure. What do you know about that, Walter? And first, thank you for being on the show.
I don't know. I know that it was a very limited release with no advertising. So it was the general hope if you were driving by the theater and saw the marquee, you might stop and go in. But it basically, it was decided that the best financial approach to getting the movie seen was the video on demand.
Yeah.
We all live in a very different world now. I mean, the one that I, worked in for years and years and years. We used to go out in 2,000 theaters, and now just to get into a theater, especially if you're an independent film, is a real, that in itself is an achievement.
Yeah. Well, I was very happy when it kind of like all of a sudden came out of nowhere for me that, Dead for a Dollar was coming out. I think when the trailer got dropped is when I first heard about it. And I was like, man, that's number one. It was great that you had another film coming out, but the cast you assembled is absolutely fantastic. Can you talk a little bit about how casting went about?
Well, look, when you make a Western, you do have, most of the things are stacked against you. The financiers don't usually want anything to do with them. It's just hard to get them made. But there's the ace in the hole is the actors love to work in them. They like them. They, for the obvious reasons, I suppose. But deep down inside, I remember talking to Jeff Bridges about this when we were getting ready to do Wild Bill. It's a way of measuring yourself against so many of the great actors of the past. When you play a lead in a Western, you've got to stand up to Jimmy Stewart and Gary Cooper and Joel McRae and obviously John Wayne and others. So this particular cast, it's kind of an involved story. I'm not sure you want to hear all of it, but I'll be happy to tell.
However much of it you feel like telling.
Well, it started out, I had the job of writing a Western, and I decided I was going to write a rather different screenplay. I happened to be reading, but I had no goddamn idea what I was going to do. And vaguely I did, but I was reading a history of outlawry in the Oklahoma territories. And I came across, references to a man named Chris Madsen, who I read a bit about. Madsen was born in Denmark. He served in the Danish army. He then served in the French Foreign Legion. He then took a boat to America. He went west. He joined the American Army. He was a scout for the Army. And he drifted into law enforcement. He worked as a sheriff and a town marshal kind of thing, and then became a bounty man. He had a long and really adventure-filled, I guess we would say, career, an honorable career. He was an honest man. And I thought, when I was reading about it, that how, he had not become famous like so many of the Western legends had. And it seemed a bit wrong. But what I really liked was the idea of presenting a bounty hunter as an immigrant, as someone who did not simply represent the Anglo tradition of American history, but the assumption that the people had been there for a very long time. And of course, the truth is the West was populated to a great degree by immigrants. It wasn't really such a unique thing, but it's not often demonstrated in movies. So anyway, once that, I thought, yeah, that's a good idea. Then I didn't want to do Chris Madsen. He had a very specific history, and I didn't think I could do justice to it. But I wanted that idea of the European immigrant and bringing a European sensibility to the kind of eponymous action hero, Western hero. And I then thought, and it's all really, these things happen so quickly inside your head once the light bulb goes on. I wanted an opponent, an antagonist that was about the same age, but very American and typified a lot of American Western ideas. So I began to write, and then once you then begin to build your narrative, but it always starts with the characters. And I again fell back on the Homeric, the idea that a man of power hires a mercenary to retrieve a presumably abducted woman, but that turns out not to be true. This is a trope that's been used many times since Homer, but I guess we should say best by Homer, but
yeah.
I decided to borrow it one more time. It's really kind of the basis of Streets of Fire too. I mean, that was, we leaned on the Homeric. Anyway, but then as I began to build the narrative, I didn't want to just do something kind of Frozen in Amber and a salute to Westerns and that kind of thing. I wanted some contemporary issues, so I decided to deal with race and the kind of proto-feminist politics to a degree, tempered by the idea that I wasn't going to write a contemporary dialogue on it. I didn't want a polemic. I was going to keep the debate within the confines of the year 1897, make it true to that. I thought that was true to the characters and true to the audience.
Yeah.
So anyway, it all came together very quickly. I endlessly rewrite, but I actually got my draft not too long a time, I think 6 weeks or something. And I called Christoph. I knew Christoph. He and I were friendly. And I talked to his agent, who was over here at the house. And he said, yeah, let's send it to Christoph. I told him about it. And Christoph called back a day later and said, yeah, when do we, I like it. I'd like to do it. And I sent it to Willem. And I had always had Willem in mind.
Yeah.
And I sent it, and Willem and I are old friends.
Yeah.
We've known each other for a long time. I very much admire him. He's put together a wonderful career. And Willem now lives outside of Rome. Anyway, he called me and said, he said he didn't want any other actor to play the part, so he'd do it. And then the trick became the rest of the cast fell into place very, very smartly. But we had a wonderful casting director. but the last piece in the puzzle was Rachel, the character of Rachel, who turned out to be Rachel Brosnahan. But
yeah,
and the casting director said to me, we had several false starts in different directions, and she suggested Rachel to me, and I said, God, you think we could get her? She's,
right.
mighty hot at the moment, and I wonder what. And she said, no, she'll be free at that time. And she said, I'll get a fast answer. And sent it to Rachel, and I think Rachel, within a day or two, said that she'd like to talk to me. I called Rachel up. We had a long chat. I think she was driving someplace while we were talking, and she agreed to do the movie. And I think there's no question that her performance is a director's dream as far as that goes. And I think she elevates the movie. She gets it beyond the usual tropes of the Western, as they now say.
Yeah, I think she brings the modern ideal that you were kind of not wanting to be specific about in the script, but basically in her performance. I think it brings it out in reality.
Well, it was a difficult part to play. I told her before we started, I said, look, most of the characters I think you're going to have a long career, very successful career. Most of the characters you will play will be people looking for love. This character is not looking for love. She's looking for respect. And the danger of that, which is not one of the great ideas of Western man or something, but the danger of it is it becomes brittle and too cold, and that the audience doesn't respond to the nature of the character. So, but I always believed that her passage within the film and what she has to go through would win the audience over, despite the fact that it's not a romantic part.
Right.
And I think by the end of the movie, we all love her.
Yeah, it's definitely definitely an interesting role. I talked to Warren Burke recently, and who I just thought was kind of a revelation as Poe. He said that he got to shadow you a little bit while you were directing. What can you say about Warren?
Well, number one, I had a lot of fun with him. He's got a great sense of humor, and we just got along very well. And Warren has, in my opinion, probably the hardest part in the movie to play. When you approach it as an actor, he's got to be one thing to the Army. Yep, yeah, that stuff. He's got to be in this guarded relationship where he doesn't express his true personality with his assignment partner, Max Borland, Christoph. He's another, and when he's with his estranged but old buddy Elijah, he has a different personality, brother to brother. And so he's got to play all of those colors within, 100 minutes of drama. And I thought he pulled it off very, very well.
Yeah.
Each character hopefully has a few surprises. Willem's character has a bit of, he's a scoundrel, but he does have his own particular code, which he does not violate and lives up to. Max is very unpredictable in his opinions. He's very, he keeps it very much within, but, and his enigmatic nature hides the good person. And he's one of those who finally will always do the right thing.
Yeah.
And even if it, in his case, his question is, does he violate his professional code? He was hired to do something. Should he, now that he knows the truth, should he continue to persist in that, or should he alter his course? So they all have their dilemmas and question marks.
Yeah. I love that Willem's character is somebody that really truly tried to not get into it with Borland, but fate interceded by getting mixed up in Benjamin Bratt's Tibius. What was I'm sorry, I'm blanking on Tiberio. Okay, yeah. His character's business forcing his hand to come after Max.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which I thought was really interesting.
Benjamin Bratt, he was another one. He was my first choice for the part. I'd seen him work over the years, right back from the old Law and Order days, but since, and I thought he did a really good job. The character doesn't have a lot of scenes, but he has enormous presence in this story. I told him that he had the Mae West part, and Mae had a rule that any scene that she wasn't in, they had to be talking about her, and most of the scenes that Ben and Tiberio's not in, they're talking about him.
Yeah,
he's the great force out there.
Yeah, because it's the idea that even the local police who maybe don't want to do the wrong thing, but they know they have to deal with him if they don't follow what he wants. It's that idea, that lingering villainy, that he's going to catch up to them no matter what.
Yeah, and I wanted to present the constabulary there as having not just being the kind of typical corrupt idea, but that they do make a tragic mistake, but they do. The chief magistrate does have a sense of honor, and he does the right thing in the end.
In the end, yeah. Well, I don't have a lot more time with you, but I did want to ask you. I mean, I could sit here for probably and pepper you with questions about your films for hours, because I grew up seeing almost every one of your films in a theater, and knowing that if your name was on it, I was gonna see something at the very least interesting. And but I just have two questions related to your older films. One is, you made Johnny Handsome. You set it in New Orleans. One of my favorite films of all time. I think I bought it on VHS, DVD, and Blu-ray. I just want to kind of ask, with regards to Mickey Rourke, what are the things you remember about working with him?
Well, I liked Mickey. I liked Mickey. We got along. I was told that he was a nightmare to work with before we, and that did not turn out to be true. You get told these things, and quite often they just don't turn out to be accurate. I was told that about David Carradine when I was before I did The Long Riders, and I was told that about Stallone before I did Bullet to the Head. And Mickey is he's a very sensitive personality, kind of within this real tough street guy, and he's very conflicted within. I thought he did a marvelous job in Johnny Hansen. I was very pleased with his performance. He was there for the whole. I've run into him. We talked about doing another movie a few years ago, and he did seem to be changed a bit. I don't mean just physically, but he was warier and kind of deeply suspicious about the surrounding situations. I don't know. I mean, I think it's fair to say that he has personal demons. I like him very much. I think he's a very talented guy. I'm sorry that we don't see him more often. Yeah. And I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to do another movie with him.
Well, hopefully maybe that could actually still happen. Before I get my last question, I want to say that I was able to see your first film, Hard Times, in an actual movie theater 5 years ago. The director, a friend of mine, Joe Carnahan, came through town and did a mini movie fest where Hard Times was one of the films that he had them screen. And I got to say, it was the first time I'd ever seen it. And I loved Hard Times very much. It was just a cool setup, and it was a pretty awesome first feature. So I wanted to say that because, now from the very beginning, I've loved your work, I can say. But the other
bless you.
It was just great to be able to see a movie like that on film. But the last question I have involves Extreme Prejudice, where you've talked in the past about having about almost all your movies are essentially Westerns. I don't think any modern film you made was more Western seeming than Extreme Prejudice. And what I love about Extreme Prejudice, not only is Nick great and Powers is awesome, who I'm sad he's no longer with us, but you also have this great thing where if you look at it as a kid growing up in the 80s, it's a comment in a subtle way about the Iran-Contra situation at the same time, and the drugs for money, or guns and all that stuff. And it's set in you set it in Mexico, which, pretty much at that time was still kind of the Wild West in a lot of ways, and maybe still is. What do you remember about making that? And I know you mentioned before that you don't think many people understood that film.
Oh, did I say that?
I believe so. I think it was a movie you said nobody seemed to get.
Well, I guess there's a kind of truth to that, but that's probably my fault. I'm the one that made it. I, again, quite liked it.
I love it.
I thought both Nick and Powers were fabulous in it. I think the movie was darker than somehow. It just didn't catch the wave. It wasn't the right moment for it. It wasn't the right. It was not understood in a political context, and I don't think it was a deeply political movie, but it did touch upon certain. Absolutely right. The Iran-Contra situation and paramilitary involvements. There was also, one of the things that it has really nothing to do with the movies, but it has to do with their fate, is when studios change hands, they often get lost in the shuffle. Yeah. And we we went through changing of the guard during that post-production period. So I think that was that happened on Streets of Fire too. That was, suddenly you have an administration that does not identify with that part of the product and has no particular interest in seeing it succeed. So there's that to be said. But I don't want to make excuses. I thought we made a good movie. It didn't find an audience domestically. Did okay in Europe. Didn't do great, but it did all right. And it got much better reviews in Europe than it did here.
Yeah,
it was not very well reviewed.
And the thing, I just realized the thing you said that for, because I was reading a bunch of stuff. The thing you said that about wasn't Extreme Prejudice. It was Southern Comfort. You said that was the movie. You said that nobody in the world seemed to understand.
Well, I don't know. I don't think of myself as a lonely, misunderstood person. Yeah. So I've had a lucky career, and I'm happy to still be here doing it.
Yeah, no, I'm happy too. And I one last thing about Extreme Prejudice for me, in terms of Westerns or action movies in particular, I think that ending is the second best shootout ending since The Wild Bunch. And I just wanted to make sure that you knew that I thought that.
Well, that's a big compliment, and I thank you for it. That's throwing me in there with the gods.
Yeah, Sam, which, that's a guy that was brilliant. But I don't want to take up any more of your time. I think I've gone over. But Mr. Hill, it's been an absolute honor to talk to you. I wish you the best of luck. I wish for more films, and hope everything keeps going well for you.
Thank you, Brett.
All right, thank you. You have a good rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.
All right, bye.